Two men humiliated a sumo wrestler in a restaurant. After leaving, they found themselves being followed by him. At first, the two thought he was just heading in the same direction. They deliberately took a detour to test him, but unexpectedly, the sumo wrestler quickly caught up. The two panicked and began running faster. When they reached a corner, they quickly looked back to check on the sumo wrestler. Fortunately, he hadn't followed them around the corner, but as soon as they turned around, they saw him running rapidly toward them. Terrified, the two men turned and fled. With the sumo wrestler in hot pursuit, the distance between them was closing fast. As the three of them ran out through an exit, they nearly collided with an elderly man on a bicycle. While crossing a street, a taxi suddenly blocked the sumo wrestler's path, allowing the two men to gain some distance. They quickly ran into a basement, and the sumo wrestler followed. He took off his shoes and waited barefoot at the entrance. It turned out this was a members-only club, so the sumo wrestler couldn't enter. After several hours, they emerged from the building, only to find the sumo wrestler waiting for them across the street. He was even doing stretching exercises as if preparing for an attack. The moment he spotted the two men coming out, he charged toward them. Seeing this, the two men fled in panic. Perhaps because he had removed his shoes, the sumo wrestler was running even faster. The two could only run for their lives. When they reached a narrow gap between two buildings, they squeezed through it. The gap was so narrow that surely the sumo wrestler couldn't follow. But when they looked back, they saw the sumo wrestler had caught up and was desperately trying to squeeze through the gap. The two quickened their pace through the narrow alley. They then spotted a temporary police station and thought they could get help from the police. However, there was no one inside. They called for help, but after just a few words, his companion rushed out the door. The sumo wrestler had caught up again. He quickly dropped the phone and ran, with the sumo wrestler still in pursuit. Unexpectedly, his companion suddenly fell to the ground. It was too late to help. He had to save himself and ran on. The sumo wrestler stopped in front of the fallen companion. The man in the suit hid under the stairs of an overpass. His phone rang. It was his wife calling, telling him to come home early. He hung up impatiently. Suddenly, the man in the checkered shirt lunged at him. Could it be that the sumo wrestler's target was actually the man in the suit who had mocked him? Suddenly, the stairs above his head began to shake. The sumo wrestler must be coming. The two had just climbed over a railing when they saw the sumo wrestler approaching. They quickly climbed over another railing and fled. The two managed to squeeze onto a bus. They thought they had escaped disaster, but the man in the suit spotted the sumo wrestler on the bus. The sumo wrestler had actually followed them onto the bus. Perhaps because there were many passengers on board, the sumo wrestler didn't attack them. The two felt despair. It seemed they would never escape. Then the man in the suit realized, if we just apologized to him directly, this whole thing would be over. But with no other options available, the two reluctantly approached the sumo wrestler. No matter how much they apologized, the sumo wrestler wouldn't even look at them. They even bowed to him and offered a sincere apology to the sumo wrestler, but he still ignored them. Had he forgiven them? The man in the suit saw the sumo wrestler's fierce face reflected in the glass. Seeing that the other party had no intention of reconciling, the two ran off the bus at the next stop. The sumo wrestler also got off and followed them. They had been running from day into night. Both men were severely exhausted and could run no more. One collapsed on the ground, gasping heavily. Since they couldn't escape, they decided to fight back. They picked up shovels from the roadside and ambushed behind a truck. When the sumo wrestler passed by the truck, his companion rushed out with a shovel and struck the sumo wrestler on the head. The sumo wrestler turned around, seemingly unharmed. Finally, the sumo wrestler struck back. His accomplice was instantly knocked unconscious. The man in the suit was terrified and fled quickly to a temple, hiding behind a pillar. The sumo wrestler soon followed, searching around but not finding any trace of the man. Unexpectedly, he began pounding on a large tree. The man could only hide nearby and watch in fear as leaves shook and fell from the tree. Then the sumo wrestler turned and left. Only then did the man dare to come out. He saw no sign of the sumo wrestler. Suddenly, his phone rang. His wife was still urging him to come home quickly. After this terrifying day, the man cried as he apologized to his wife, saying he had been impatient with her before, and only now realized how precious his family was. As soon as he hung up, the man suddenly felt something terrifying behind him. When he turned around, he saw the fierce sumo wrestler. Unexpectedly, the sumo wrestler gradually opened his arms and smiled, slowly approaching the man and embracing him directly. Was this a gesture of reconciliation? However, it was not. Suddenly, the man collapsed.